So welcome everybody to tonight's Peace Bodies presentation. And I have a guest tonight, Cindy Clement, and she is, let me make sure I have this up here, but she is a health expert. She's been a community educator for many years, and she's an adjunct Eastern Michigan University professor, and she has a new book out, as you know. That's why you're here tonight. So it's called Your Body's Environmental Chemical Burden, and I have it right here. So as soon as she got this out, it was very shortly after she had it out for purchase, I bought it. And if you're interested in buying it, I know that on Barnes & Noble's website, I think I got 15% off, but you can find it on Amazon and or in, ask in your bookstore. So it's quite fitting that I'm having Cindy as my first guest launching the Peace Body business, because I've known her since the early 1990s when I was debilitated with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivity, and so forth. I wasn't able to work. I was on disability, and I met Cindy. Long story, but anyways, she just was instrumental in opening up my world to natural and holistic health and integrative functional medicine. And I really am so grateful and so excited to have her on tonight. So welcome, Cindy.
Oh my gosh, Julie, I'm so delighted. I would have done this in a heartbeat for you. Julie is such a dear person. And honestly, I've known her, like she said, for a very long time and just watched her grow up. Basically, I watched her grow up.
Like
so
25 years.
I know. So, and I just love her family and her mom and everything. So this is just a beautiful opportunity for me as well. So thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
So shall we just dive right into our presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to talk a little bit about your book, but you're going to focus on one really particular chemical, right?
That's right. We are going to focus on parabens tonight because we have an enormous amount of control over our exposure to parabens, especially after I teach you where you are exposed and really the dangers involved, or I should say potential dangers involved by exposure. But mostly the last half of the presentation is to give you hope and to provide tools for you on how to use and find safer products that are paraben free. And there are a number of tools. And so each of the chapters in the book actually cover one chemical, a very, like a chemical class, and parabens actually is one of them. But I really wanted to do this tonight because, again, as young women, we really need to be aware of these parabens. And at the end of the presentation, you'll pretty much understand why. So shall I click on the slides, Julie?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And then and you can let us know too that you cover a lot of different chemicals too in the book.
Yes, I do. And it really is a resource guide. I'll give them the story. How's that? I'll give you the background. And in that, how this all came about really is in the fall of 2013, I attended a lecture on health. And the presenter at the time used the term body burden. Now, everyone knows what that means now, but 5 years ago, that was still a term that was still not well known. And I assumed that the burden that they spoke of was that which most of us carry. So meaning either our emotional burden or the burden of excess body weight. But you see, that term just stuck with me for a very long time. I would be washing dishes and my brain would go body burden. Or I would be driving in the car and I would body burden. And so it really piqued my curiosity. So Julie mentioned that I am an adjunct professor at EMU and I have access to tens of thousands of peer-reviewed scientific journals through the university online library. So one day I just decided to see if searching the term body burden would yield any published research. Well, folks, much to my surprise, in 2013, I simply typed into the search bar body burden, and over 420,000 journal articles were immediately at my fingertips. So I had to narrow the search then, because that would be a daunting task to open all of those and read them. So I narrowed the search to just the previous 3 years, and the database still revealed over 123,000 results. So I started opening these journals and learned that the body burden was actually our exposure to environmental toxins and how it affects our bodies, health-wise, mentally, physically. And so it was at that point, I went to my very good friend, my mentor, my doctor, my personal physician, Dr. Lev Linkner, and I said, Lev, I really want to get tested, my body burden tested. He had no idea what I was talking about, but as usual, he knows that I'm always thinking ahead, and he said, well, Cindy, I don't really know that much about it, but if you can find a test that you'd like me to order, I'd be glad to do it for you. So I searched for quite a while, and I found Genova Diagnostics had it was called the Core Effects Test, and I had this. It was almost $1,000. I had to convince my husband that this was really mattered that I did this. So we spent the money. I did the test, and the results to me were startling. For a woman who had been eating organic for over 40 years,
right,
for a person
healthy.
who had been using the safest personal care products that I thought, and the safest cleaning products, really truly walking the talk. I was in the 95th percentile on so many of these chemicals. And folks, you have to remember that the 95th percentile means that out of 100 people, only 5 people had more of that chemical in their system than I did. And so my mind was just blown. I thought, I have got to figure out what these chemicals are. And so when I discovered the body burden and all of these articles, I started to open them up and read about it. And I accumulated 1,500 clinical studies that I thought were pertinent to my body burden. And I read every one of them and made notes. Now here I've got a stack about 3 feet high on my desk of journal articles, and burned out a computer printing them all, but it was a crazy story. So I looked at this stack and I thought, what am I going to do with this information? What am I supposed to do with this? Would anybody else be interested in learning about this? What am I going to do with all this newfound knowledge? And I decided at that then and there, this was never the book I was going to write, folks. There's another book that one day will come, and it will be diametrically, you will not believe how different this book will be. And it's more of well, I won't even tell you. But anyway, this was not the book I was going to write. But as it came, I opened up a Word document and I organized the information, and this is what came of it. So tonight, what I want to do is teach you about parabens. This is one chapter, one of the smaller chapters in the book, but you'll learn so much, and you'll kind of get a feel for what kind of information is in the book and the resources that it's rich in to help you avoid all of these chemical classes. So that's my story. So why don't I put those slides up, Julie? All right, so let's do this. Let me open this up and figure out how to do this. I'm supposed to do slideshow. You tell me if this is working. Whoop, no, that's not it. Hold on, I've got the wrong.
So, yeah,
I want to play from start.
Start.
There it goes. Is it up?
Yep, perfect.
Awesome. Okay, great. So again, what are parabens? Where do they come from, and how are we going to get rid of them? And that's what we're going to talk about this evening. So, Julie already indicated what we use them for in cosmetics and in food products are antimicrobials. So if we didn't have an antimicrobial in our beauty care products, let's say we washed our face and, our hands are clean, and we stick our finger into our face cream and we rub it on our face. But before we do that, we touch our cell phone, and our cell phones are some of the filthiest things in our lives. They truly are covered in bacteria. Now, let's say I fiddled with my phone and then I dipped my finger into that beauty care product, that facial cream at night. That bacteria on my hand could contaminate that entire product and cause it to go bad. So we need antimicrobials in our beauty care products and some of the different products that we'll talk about, but certainly not parabens. This is just one class of chemicals that is extremely inexpensive, and these are the 5 most common that you will read on especially a beauty care product. Now, most of these parabens are produced in China, but they have been detected globally. In other words, completely around the world. It's not just a United States problem. It's not just a North America problem. This is a problem around the world. Now, I go back to this slide and you'll see 5 of those parabens. The reported production of each of those parabens is approximately 20 million pounds per year. So we are looking at 100 million pounds of parabens being produced each year around the world. So what are they used in? Well, we're exposed to them, believe it or not, through fruits and vegetables. As we mentioned, it's in the wastewater, the surface water, it's in our soil and in our sediment. Paper products have parabens in them. Of course, the cosmetic products as well as detergents. So let's talk a little bit about this personal exposure. In the year 2010, parabens were detected in 44% of all cosmetic products and in 8% of detergents. The 2 big ones that we find most frequently are the methylparaben and the propylparaben. They typically head the list on all of these, in all of these products. Now, they started to detect, as we mentioned, in the wastewater and in the surface water. 4 parabens were detected in 90% of 20 species of fish that were analyzed in the Philippines. Now, again, this is not just a Philippines problem. This is a worldwide problem. So again, in this Philippine study, the methylparaben was about 80% of the composition of parabens in the fish, again, followed by propylparabens. So those seem to be the 2 biggest ones. But as you see from the list, we're also personally exposed through these products in our home, or even prescription medications use parabens and the consumption of contaminated fish. But we are also exposed occupationally. If we are working in the manufacturing of where parabens are used, or if we work in personal care products industry, if we are in pet products or paper product development or air fresheners or even preservatives in foods. Remember, parabens are antimicrobials, so they are found in foods quite often. Now, what happened was these parabens were first detected about 15 years ago in breast tumor tissue. And as you can see by the slide, they were later detected in seminal fluid, in blood, in breast milk, and placental tissue. And again, this is tested around the world. The problem is that parabens disrupt endocrine production. So they are considered an endocrine disrupting compound. Parabens have been shown then to stimulate the growth of breast cancer cells. So when we start to think about parabens that we're using in our bodies, studies actually confirmed parabens in 100% of urine samples tested from pregnant women. And again, it was that methylparaben that was tested the highest in the breast milk as well. So as females, one of the most important things for us to do is to really target the young women, The goal of my book, believe it or not, is to really get the millennial generation to understand the need to not only detoxify their body, which can take up to 1 year depending on how much of these chemicals, not just parabens, but all of the environmental chemicals that are in their tissues, it can take up to about a year to detoxify. So what we want to do then is we want to teach these young people about detoxification as well as how to avoid exposure so that the female and the male are not passing these chemicals on to the unborn anymore, because it is a problem. Now, furthermore, these parabens are detected in breast tissue. So one or more of these parabens was found in 99% of all breast tissue samples. 60% contained all 5 of those parabens that were measured. So we look at this 60% and we think, oh my goodness, there it is again. Methylparaben constituted 60% of the content. And again, followed by methylparaben, butylparaben, and on it goes. So it's really important, and I will teach you how to make sure that you are using the safest deodorant possible. Because when we have these paraben-containing personal care products on our skin, continuous exposure, long-term, what happens is these parabens then accumulate in the underlying tissues. In the United Kingdom, breast cancers located in that upper outer region of the breast now exceed 50%. And this is where the deodorant is applied. So dermal exposure under the arm, it interacts with the binding of those estrogen receptor sites that we have near that breast tissue. As I mentioned, parabens can have an endocrine disrupting effect on the body. Now, their binding ability is considered weaker than the estrogens that are made in our body. But when we have this increase in concentration, it can actually have the same level of binding as the body's stronger estradiol. So we have to be extremely careful, once again, about where we are applying these. But better yet, let's just make sure that they aren't in our personal care products at all. But let's just talk a bit about estradiol, the body's estrogen. Estradiol is a female sex hormone. It's produced by our ovaries, it's produced by our adrenal gland, and it's also produced by the placenta during pregnancy. It is one of the most important hormones during the female reproductive years. It's required for reproductive functioning, for sexual functioning, as well as having an impact on the health of the female organs and tissues. Now, as you can see by this slide, in our bodies, we see that estradiol occurs in something called a picogram, which is 1/1,000,000th of a gram. But the 2012 study reported that the breast tissue was measuring in micrograms. That's 1,000,000-fold higher. So again, making sure that those parabens are not in the personal care products is a simple step to follow, and one that's very easy to accomplish. There were studies conducted in 2007 and 2008, and it showed that when you apply these personal care products to your body that contain parabens, these parabens are detected in the bloodstream within 1 hour of application. So limits are set on the paraben content that is supposed to be allowed in personal care products. But you see, we don't just use one personal care product. And so the limits of exposure are being exceeded. In fact, adolescent girls between the ages of 12 and 16 have the highest exposure of all women. And African American women show a greater than 3 times higher rate of exposure than Caucasians. Now, researchers were wondering, is that attributable to also their pharmaceutical use and the personal care use? You know, in other words, both of those put together. They're still trying to figure out why the African Americans have so many more parabens in their bloodstream. But as you can see on the slide, women themselves have 3 to 4 times greater amounts of parabens detected in their urine than men, because we use more of those personal care products. Now, at the Massachusetts General Hospital, they have a center, a fertility center, and what they found is that they do believe that the research is pointing that exposure to one of those parabens, the propylparaben, could possibly be contributing to ovarian aging, which means infertility in young women, and diminished ovarian function or early menopause in women. So these parabens, not only do they disrupt the estrogen balance in our body, but they have also been shown to be anti-androgenic, and then thus decrease the sperm function and inhibit testosterone. So men that are using personal care products with parabens, it's actually affecting their hormonal levels as well. They also found some effect on insulin secretion. So people that have insulin resistance or are type 2 diabetes, some of that is also connected to the parabens. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way whatsoever that parabens are the main cause of infertility or early menopause or problems with the male reproductive system, but it certainly has been shown to play quite a large role. So there are some possible health concerns with paraben exposure, and you can probably imagine one of them would be breast cancer. We just talked about the insulin-related disorders and the infertility and the reproductive dysfunction in males and females, the low testosterone in males, the decrease in sperm functioning, and that premature menopause. Just looking at that list, you can see how parabens are endocrine disrupting compounds. Now, here's what's going on around the world. In Sweden, they have what they call the SIN list, or the Substitute It Now list. In 2011, parabens were added to this list. In other words, substitute it now. Get it out of our personal care products, because research suggests that this estrogenic burden of parabens may exceed that action of estradiol in children, and that long-term low-level exposures beginning so early in their little lives may be priming them for later effects. Meanwhile, in Denmark in 2011, they notified the European Union's Scientific Committee on Consumer Safety. It banned propylparaben and butylparaben in products for children under the age of 3, again, because of the research pointing to reproductive toxicity and the adverse effects on the male reproductive system. So under the European Union Cosmetic Directive, a paraben used in a cosmetic product can only have a maximum of 0.4% of the total maximum allowed concentration. But that's for only one of the parabens. So when you start putting, let's say, butylparaben and propylparaben and all of those things together, you can clearly see that those are exceeded. Those limits are exceeded. And remember, we already said that 44% of cosmetic products studied contained more than one paraben. Meanwhile, in the US, the Food and Drug Administration has determined that parabens are completely safe for use in cosmetics. And note, following what's called an industry-led review. One of the things you have to be really careful about when you're reading research is who sponsored the study, because that is a conflict of interest. And any very well conducted study or research project is always free of conflict. So when you see something that was an industry-led review, that means that the cosmetic products companies funded that study. And that, my friends, is called a conflict of interest, because as a result, parabens are not regulated in the United States. So the question then becomes, where on earth do we start? As I mentioned before, we have to start with these young childbearing women. That is my goal. As of course, those that have young children, and in fact, any of us, but especially we want to start with these newer generations. There has never been a generation as toxic as the ones coming in now. I have 3 grandchildren. And as I was writing this book, I was realizing how many of these problems that my grandchildren have that none of our other family members had were because of the environmental contaminants that they have been exposed to. The average baby being born today in the United States, comes into this life with 287 environmental chemicals in the umbilical cord blood. Those are chemicals that are being passed on from the parents. These chemicals affect not only their mental state, their learning ability, their physical development, but it also, especially in the case of my grandchildren, I have 2 grandchildren with congenital heart disease. Never anywhere in my family or in my children's spouse's family was there ever heart disease, was there ever congenital heart disease. But as I wrote this book and I looked at the number of children now coming into this world with heart problems, it all started to make sense to me. And when I see the aberrant behavior that we are seeing in people today, and their anger, and they're shooting, these children shooting each other at school. Honestly, when you start to look at the research, it really makes a lot of sense, because these chemicals are not just affecting our endocrine glands, they are affecting every part of our body, our guts, our digestion, our brains. And so I truly feel that this is an important information that I just decided after doing this research, people have to know about this. I was just telling Julie before we became live that Michigan Public Radio has a copy of my book from my publicist, and they will be interviewing me. So this is going national. I've hired a publicist to take our message to the national level. I want people to have the information so that they can make changes in their life and use the tools that are available to avoid future exposure. So let's start with the young childbearing women and teach them about paraben exposures, and share this presentation with everyone truly. And we also want to share it with those on a weight loss program. Here's what's interesting. When you go on a weight loss program, most of the chemicals that are stored in our body are fat soluble. And so they're stored in our bone marrow, they're stored in our brain, they're stored in all of our fatty tissue. So when a person loses weight and those fat cells shrink, these environmental toxicants are reintroduced to the bloodstream and have to go through the liver and the detoxification channels once again. Anytime someone is on a weight loss program, it is imperative that they do detoxification, plants and things, to get these chemicals from being reuptaked in the body, to get them to be absorbed so they're not going back through the filter, they're not going back into the body, to be reabsorbed in another area. So anyone who is chronically ill and losing weight rapidly on a weight loss program, anyone who is pregnant or nursing, we really have to be careful with these groups. And by the way, I should mention right now, we never detoxify a pregnant or nursing woman because those chemicals will go to the developing baby. So we have to be really careful to get them before they're pregnant and nursing or after they're pregnant and nursing. So let me give you some action steps. I mentioned how we have toxic fish, how the fish in Manila had all of these parabens in it. This is a wonderful resource for you. It's the national, and all you have to do is Google that second bullet point. Simply Google national listing of fish advisory, and then you can just put EPA website. This map will come up on a website, and you can click on the state where you live. We're in Michigan. I want you to notice that both Michigan and Minnesota have the worst inland lake pollution of any other place in the country, the darker blue. This is a statewide advisory for our lakes, and this is such a sadness. You can see that some of the other states, there are no stateside freshwater advisory, but our waters are so toxic. Look at Minnesota. They have 1,251 different fish advisories. And by a fish advisory, what that means is what kind of fish people shouldn't be eating, the size of the fish, and in fact, it could mean that any pregnant woman or child under 6 shouldn't be eating the fish at all. So this is a resource for you because you can go to this website and find the safest fish for you and your family. The national listing of fish advisory from the EPA website. Now that the government shut down, I don't know if that's shut down or not, but it will be available sooner or later. Here are a couple more amazing action steps. The first one is the National Library of Medicine, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So how you find this one is you will simply Google, put NLM, which stands for National Library of Medicine, and then put a comma, and then put USDHHS. Isn't that crazy? But that's what you do. And put, let's see, Household Products Database. And if you do that, you are able then to go to this website and find out, maybe you've got a hobby and you're using arts and crafts supplies. You can go to that website and check your arts and crafts products. You can check your auto products. You can check your personal care not your personal care products. Yes, you can, but you can check your commercial products for cleaning. You can check the institutional products that they use for cleaning, your home office, your home maintenance, all of these, and not just for parabens. You can check every single chemical in every one of these household products through the U.S. National Library of Medicine. I know it says check household products for parabens because that's the lecture this evening, but you can check all of the chemicals for that. Now, you can also check medications for parabens. Very easy. Many of them do contain methylparabens. So you go to drugs.com and you can simply find a listing of all of those prescriptions that have methylparabens in them. Once at drugs.com, simply go to the search bar and type in methylparaben, and then I would just put medication, and you will find that listing. It's it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Now, what does that mean? You don't take that product anymore? No, it just simply means that perhaps you can go to your physician and you could say, I'd like to still be, use this medication, if especially if you need it. Or you can ask them for one that doesn't have parabens in it. You can check your personal care products for parabens, and this one is the easiest way ever. You go to the Environmental Working Group's website. It's called EWG for Environmental Working Group, and it's called Skin Deep. Extremely easy to find on Google, EWG Skin Deep. And this is a database of 80,000 personal care products that you can search. There's also an app that you can have on your phone, and you can simply use you can use your camera. If you have the app, you turn on the app, you take your camera and you scan the barcode of the personal care product with your camera, and it will automatically pull that up on your phone, and you can see if the product is safe. So for instance, my 12-year-old granddaughter, and of course my daughter and her whole family were here, but while they were here, my daughter said, Mom, we just ran out of deodorant. Can you take Katie, my 12-year-old granddaughter, to the health food store and show her how to find a safe deodorant? Took her to the store. She has an iPhone. Took her to the store. We downloaded the EWG Skin Deep. It's actually called Healthy Living app. EWG Healthy Living app. We downloaded that. We put it on her phone. I showed her how to scan not only personal care products. I showed her how to scan cleaning products at age 12. This is when we start to teach them early. And you can see the hazard score key right there on the slide. So if it comes up green, you've got a pretty safe product. And if it comes up moderate, it's the yellow color. And if it's a high hazard product, well, I would hope that we could avoid that. The Breast Cancer Action website actually will list paraben-free cosmetic companies. So this is well known, and for other countries to be banning these chemicals and for the United States to say, well, our industry-led review found them safe, really we have to question that. But here's something else I want to tell you. Parabens are fairly easy to detoxify from the body. What we need is nutrition. We need to take care of our gut, keep our microbiome in check. We need to sweat as much as possible. We need to do a little bit of fasting. If our health can take it, we should do some vegetable juicing. Colonics are a good idea. Certainly herbs and essential oils. But the plants that you're looking at here on this slide have been clinically shown to support detoxification in the body. So this is a wonderful group of plants that should be a vital part of our lives. And of course, detoxifying regularly. There's one supplement that's extremely well researched when it comes to detoxification, and that is N-acetylcysteine. It's also known as NAC. And as you can see in the little illustration there, NAC increases what is called glutathione levels. Glutathione is the mother of all antioxidants in our bodies. And this is, N-acetylcysteine is really important for that liver's detoxification, and it also increases our body's ability to make our own glutathione. NAC also mobilizes these toxicants. Remember how I said they're stored in fatty tissue? NAC gets those moving out of the tissue, out of the bone marrow, out of the fatty tissue that we have, out of our liver, out of our fatty organs, out of our brain, and helps to increase the elimination from our body. So NAC is used in almost all of the clinical research for detoxification. But plants, my goodness, plants have been shown to support the cleansing and the removal of not only waste, but as well as these environmental contaminants. When they're combined, when you use different combinations of different herbs and plants, it creates what we call a synergistic effect. It actually activates that body's ability to cleanse and eliminate the toxic buildup from within the body. Every plant listed on this slide has clinical research behind it showing you detoxification of environmental chemicals. These are some of them, and there will be more as time goes on. One of the researchers and doctors who supported my book and wrote a review for me, Dr. Stephen Genwis from the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. He's the lead researcher in how to get the chemicals out of the body. And what he told me is, Cindy, you cannot detox a chemical with a chemical. It has to be a plant. And so his office up there at the University of Alberta are using plants in their research to detoxify bodies. So herbal medicine, huge for detoxification. And don't forget chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is kind of like plant blood. It's that green. If you were to take a handful of dandelion leaves or a handful of I don't know, red clover leaves and put them in your blender with water. And if you turned it on for 5 seconds, you would have green water, right? You would be drinking the blood of that plant. Chlorophyll provides a very strong immune response in the body, but is safe for people with an autoimmune disorder. There's a lot of research out there showing that chlorophyll is useful for inflammatory bowel diseases, for an immune system that's hyperimmune. In other words, they just are so sensitive to everything. But it also has the ability to cleanse the blood, deodorize the body, strengthen the cells, and again, support that intestinal system. But don't forget essential oils. As you know, essential oils are huge today. Everyone's into essential oils. So if we look at 3 of the ones that Dr. Genwis has been researching up in Canada, he loves peppermint essential oil. He said that it's more effective for small intestinal bacteria overgrowth than pharmaceutical drugs. But what it's used for in detoxification is it helps to take away the nausea or the headache or the discomfort that some people feel when we get those toxicants remobilized and they re-enter the bloodstream. People sometimes feel quite ill. So they're using peppermint oil to kind of take care of that nausea, that headache, that just really yucky feeling that some people can have, not everyone. But as you see, it's very powerful against toxic residues. The second essential oil that is being used so much today is lemon. Lemon stimulates the white blood cells and it can help defend the body against infection. It's effective against viruses, but it also has anti-hepatotoxic effects. So hepato, liver. So look at the word, anti-toxic liver effects. So this is another one that they're using in their clinical research, and you can see it detoxifies through the blood and through the liver. Lastly, grapefruit. Grapefruit has very strong antifungal and antibacterial properties. It can actually impede the growth of molds, but it is wonderful for speeding up that lymphatic circulation to help with the elimination of toxins. So the grapefruit essential oil is especially good for the liver and the lymphatic system in regards to detoxification. So again, who do you know that's pregnant or nursing? First of all, remember they can't detoxify. Let's get them when they're planning pregnancy. That's when we want them. But who do you know that might be occupationally exposed? What comes to mind for me, of course, are in the beauty salons and places like that. Who do you know that uses cosmetics or uses deodorant? So this book is really useful. Oh, it says available soon, but it is already on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. In fact, it sold out in 5 days on Amazon when it first came out in October, so that was pretty exciting. But It's available now, and each chapter goes through that. You just saw the chapter on parabens. It teaches you exactly what you need to know, why they're dangerous, how to avoid them, and how to get them out of the body. So that's what I had to share this evening. Now, how do I get rid of these slides and go back to our chat, Julie? What do I do? Do I go like that? No. Let's see. Escape, stop share. Let's
Sorry,
see.
I put myself on video. There you go.
Okay, I figured it out. I figured it out. Oh, look at you, Julie. Look at her. Look what she's done, you guys. She's already put in the EP. I love you. And she's put in the EWG Skin Deep. Good for you, Julie. Thank you for giving them that.
Oh,
That's
sure.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So,
and then I'm gonna put in your, whoops, my hair. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just trying to get rid of this box up here. So, and here's your website. I'll put that in there. And and so I can share that too.
If you go to my website, you'll see the little, what's called a book trailer. My niece is a film major at Clemson University, and when she knew I was coming out with a book, she said, Aunt Cindy, can I make a book trailer for you? And I said, honey, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, you know how there are movie trailers? And I said, yes. She said, well, the new big thing today is a book trailer, Aunt Cindy. So you do a 1-minute video to show them what's in the book. So if you go to my website, you can see the little trailer, but I think it's, here, gosh,
yeah,
Julie,
it's right
you are
here.
so good at that. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah. So I don't know if it will play, but
I don't think it will.
Yeah, but people, you can, it's a good one.
It's just cindyclement.com. So
yep, cindyclement.com, and then you can click on the book on the bottom. Yep. So yeah, so that's right here. So this is where you'll see, this is our page, cindyclement.com, and then you can scroll to the bottom and click on her book, Learn More, and that's where we were. So
you can also use up above my picture.
Okay, and you can do see
the video will play, and
awesome.
I know all the pages.
Well, what I like about your book is that at the end of each chapter, you have what you can do. So at the end, you have like, okay, so like, well, I don't know if I'm on the parabens one, but look, I can pick any one. So like this one's like chemicals used in plastics and manufacturing, so the PCBs, right? So then you go and you talk about what body systems it affects and your environmental exposure, and then you break it down, like you have lists. So where the exposure might occur, an environment, in home, in a workplace. And then what I like is that you have the Empower Yourself page, just like you were just showing us with the parabens. And so you have like some steps you can do, and then the resources and suggestions. So you have a lot of links and a lot of information. And there's so much more. I mean, this just touches the iceberg, but I think that when we go to the back of the book, like you just went over the detoxification, you have what you went over in the back of the book on the detox. And so here, and so you have what's listed there. I had just a couple questions. So like with the when someone probably should be working with someone in holistic or integrative functional medicine, because they'd be more knowledgeable and what types of supplements to take and how that all works, because they'll have that in their education where they really should. And the point is that depending on how toxic you are, you can make yourself quite sick. I mean, if your body tissue has a very strong burden and you just kind of want to detoxify on your own, you can make yourself pretty sick, because you're stirring things, you're getting these toxicants moving again in the body. And if the elimination organs aren't healthy enough or strong enough,
you really feel bad about, you know what I mean? You're physically,
Right.
you feel bad. I mean, you can't kill yourself or anything doing it, but you would feel really, really, really bad.
You do feel sick,
And
right?
you want to work with somebody because you don't know how much NAC they would need or how much of the
Right.
herbs or thing. You got to work with somebody, and always, always, always start slowly with tiny, tiny amounts, because each person is going to react differently.
Right.
So
Right.
that's important too. And working with someone that's knowledgeable is always key.
Sure, very much so. So I just wanted to make sure we touched on that, as well as when it comes to just general health, so keeping us healthy, it's good to just that we're boned up and adequate, more than enough amounts of minerals, which so much of
That's right.
are low in. And then I've been told that with the herbs and spices, that if we're using them in culinary purposes, so in the kitchen, that we should actually be using like 2 to 3 tablespoons
That's
to
right.
really get the benefit. And so none of us are doing that too much,
No.
right? So unless you're grown up that way, probably not here. And then the chlorophyll, a popular one is cilantro. Now, is there that would be one that's more potent, that I wouldn't advise taking as a supplement unless you were working with someone, but just eating it, chopping it up, and having that was something I actually did before I got pregnant. Is that one of the ones you'd recommend, or
And
any?
alfalfa, some of the chlorophyll is
Alfalfa.
made with alfalfa, and that one is not as powerful, but yet it is. I don't know how to say that. It's not as powerful as cilantro, but it still has the ability to clean the blood, strengthen the intestinal system, kind of balance the microbiome. So, and it doesn't have, some people have a problem with cilantro because they feel like it tastes like soap. There's that gene that they have. It comes with a genetic thing, and they don't like the taste of soap, in which case the alfalfa might taste a little better to them. So.
So we have a question, how much do you mean the NAC?
Yeah, it says I meant NAC.
Yeah.
I see
Oh,
that.
okay, I
But
see.
again,
Okay, so
you have to start slowly. It's
right.
going to be, with everyone, it's going to be different.
Well, and I know that I'm pretty, I'm working with someone myself, actually. That's our next step, because I've been working on, some different issues, gut issues and whatnot, but that's my next step, is to detoxify. And so the NAC, I was taking around 500 milligrams, and that was too much for me.
It was too much for me too.
It was too much for me. So, and I actually, back in the day when I had the chronic fatigue, I took the glutathione, which they say the NAC was better, but for me, the glutathione worked better. So it is hard to do that on your own. It is better to work with someone. But so they want to, so did you retest for your toxin?
I have not retested yet for two reasons. Because I wanted to give it 5 years. I'm 66 years old, so I have a lot of stored chemicals, and I wanted it to be very dramatically different. So I'm giving it a 5-year. So it'll probably be another couple of years before I retest. So.
And it's expensive.
It's $1,000, and right now I'm paying a publicist.
Right.
So that's the second reason my money's going elsewhere. But I'm very confident, extremely confident, that it will be different, because I made the changes. I know where I was being exposed, and I got rid of those things and really made the changes. So I'm extremely confident that it will come back much different, and that'll be exciting. That'll be the second edition. That'll be in the second edition of the book.
Now are you, I know you have been a vegetarian, right? Do you eat fish then? Or, and especially like thinking, fatty fish, that's what we tell people to eat. And then, right. So like sardines,
I have not been a vegetarian for quite a while.
Okay.
I just lost, I know it sounds funny, but I lost way too much weight, and I didn't feel like I had enough strength. I don't eat a lot of meat at all. And by meat, I mean chicken, fish, beef, pork. I don't eat that. I eat a lot of eggs, and I do eat, and I did have to learn how to buy the best egg. I eat a lot of eggs, and I have just small amounts of cheese, and that's where I get my protein. But I ate a lot of fish until I wrote the book, and now I can't eat the fish. I eat it occasionally. I do eat it occasionally because I love it. But after I wrote the book, I just realized, out of everything I was eating, the fish was really contributing a lot of what I had learned. And I had to stop because I'm doing the experiment, right? And I want to see where my sources of exposure were. And I truly felt it was all the fish we were eating contributed to some of those chemicals. And so I'm just doing an experiment, just to see.
Well, how much fish were you eating
Oh my
before?
gosh,
So we kind of
probably
know.
4 times a week.
Okay, so
We were
more
eating a lot.
than the average.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were eating a lot of different kinds of fish, but
Sure.
us, and I would always have fatty fish, right? And then I'm learning all these chemicals are stored in the fat in the fish, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, no wonder I'm such a wreck. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but I've just changed my diet quite a bit in the last 4 years, so we'll see. We'll just
Okay.
wait and
Great.
see.
We'll to stay tuned and see.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when it comes to those good fatty acids, omega-3s, so maybe how contaminated are the plant sources with the different chemicals as far as
let me tell you what's interesting about omega-3 fatty acids from fish. A good company like Carlson's or Nature Sunshine or good companies have equipment that takes those contaminants out. If you read the label carefully, it will tell you free of dioxins, free of this, free of that. And with the instrumentation that these larger, very good companies have, the fish oil in a capsule is far cleaner than the fish that you would be eating. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
That's sad.
I know it is. I know. So I do take purified fish oil capsules. So yes, I do take them because I know that they're clean.
Yeah. I do too, actually. Yeah, that's part of my supplements.
Yeah, mine too. So I know, what a crazy world. I always tell my husband I feel like I live in a sci-fi world, right?
Right,
the water is bad, the air is bad, everything's bad. But I'll tell you what, when I wrote the book, I was really disturbed for quite a while at what I was reading. Because again, I never thought I was writing a book. And I would just, every night at dinner, I would tell my husband about how, this and this and this. And I said, I've got to stop. I have to take a break from this. Mm-hmm. And when I decided to write the book, I thought, I can't write this book. It's so depressing. And that's where I shifted. And as you mentioned, Julie, I put the empower yourself.
Right.
I wanted answers for this. That was that's what I needed for myself to write this book. I was not just going to put this book out there without some, here's what you do about it. Because you can do so much. And so
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know with, that's my focus is having one that's positive and reinforcing authenticity and living in a way that's meaningful and so it's like looking at this and feeling like, okay, yes, there's these things in our environment. A lot of us have either not been aware in the past or just feeling like it's too overwhelming. I just can't look into this issue. So this kind of helps because it breaks it down a little bit. It does take some time to reassess our own actions, like even that you had to do.
That's exactly right.
Different products, do the take the time to go through each product, look them up. What am I eating, doing? So for my members, for the Peace Body members that I have now, a member community, and you can go to my website and see that. But that's one of the things we're going to be doing next week. I have a wellness challenge started. So a lot of times you think, oh, let's do all the fitness, let's do the eating right. But this is more of like, what are the normal everyday things that we can change, like looking at the products, doing the skin brushing, doing the oil pulling, doing the changes in the diet, looking at the products, what products are we going to doing. So I'm starting that this Sunday. So whoever's interested in that can definitely join Peace Body. Have it for like only $7 right now. So it's a $49 a year membership, but we're just adding in more people and adding more content. So right now, just making it, building it. So it's really exciting for me because you can take these kind of challenges and these heavy topics that are so important that we do need to address. We can't sit on this any longer as a community, as an individual, and do something about it, but also at the same time feel hope and feel confident instead of being afraid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, Julie, you're so sweet. I just love her, everybody. Don't you just love her? Of course they do. That's why they're here tonight, right?
Aww.
Amazing. But it's true. We just can't ignore this any longer. People have to understand what's happening out there. And I just never, after I found out this toxicity in my body, I searched and searched and searched for a book that would tell me how I got these chemicals in me. There were hundreds of books on detoxification, but there wasn't one book that I found that told me how I got them in. And that's where the frustration started with me. Like, wait a minute. I know how to get it out, but how did it get in there in the first place, right?
Right.
So that's where knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Definitely. Definitely. And we are so grateful for having you come and be our guest tonight and giving this wonderful presentation of all the slides. That was a great idea. So I'm really thankful. So if anyone else has any last questions before we'll be signing off, put them in the text right now. But I'm just so happy for you. Doing this type of work. You've always been committed to helping others. You've spent a lifetime of just helping. And so like even me and my family, I feel like teary right now just because you've just been such an instrumental part of promoting and the health that you don't get anywhere else. I mean, that's always been about you, is that you're the trailblazer, so I thank you.
Julie, thank you. It's such an honor for me to be here tonight. I just feel truly blessed. So thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you. Oh, and before we sign off, you said that, I think, but your presentation in Ann Arbor.
Oh, that's right.
You're having, let me see, I think that I have it here. Just one second.
January 28th.
January 28th.
It's at 7:00 p.m. at Washtenaw Community College. The building is Morris Lawrence Building, if you know where that is. There's free parking, and there will be plenty of room for everyone. So, yeah, it's the January 28th at 7:00, Washtenaw Community College. I'm sure it's somewhere. If you click on your bodies and maybe it's under public speaking. I don't know where it is.
Okay, I had it. Oh yeah, well, I have it in my email here.
Okay,
so
good.
Let me just pull it up real quick.
I don't know where it is.
Here it is.
There it is. Good for you. Yep,
no, I had it. I just thought it would show. I didn't know I had to go to my email, but here it is. So here's the information, and I'll put that link on Facebook for you as well, so anybody, you can see it. But so you'll be doing that. So anyone, especially in the Ann Arbor area, can definitely go and see that.
Awesome.
So
thank you for having me, sweetheart.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to me gab.
So signing off, peace and blessings to everybody, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Already introduced me.